So here's a question that has tied people up in knots for centuries. Are we actually in control of our own lives, or is every single moment guided by a divine plan? It's that classic, age-old debate, God's sovereignty versus human free will. And today, we're going to try to untangle it.
You see, the way we usually talk about this, it's like a tug-of-war, a zero-sum game. On one side, you've got this idea of total divine control, where God is behind everything that happens. And on the other, you have meaningful human choice, which seems to mean we have to be acting on our own. It feels like the more you have of one, the less you can possibly have of the other. It's just created centuries of tension.
But what if that whole setup is just wrong? What if it's a false choice? What if we've been asking the question the wrong way this entire time? There's a totally different way to look at this, one that might just make the whole conflict disappear. And the key to unlocking this whole thing might just be something we could call the missing theological architecture, the divine council. And look, this isn't some newfangled idea. It's a model of governance that's pulled straight from the pages of the Bible.
So what does this actually look like? Well, instead of thinking of God as this lone micromanager, pulling every single string, the Bible often paints a very different picture. It's more like a supreme king who presides over a heavenly assembly. His rule isn't mechanical, it's governmental, it's participatory. Okay, check out this amazing vision from the prophet Micaiah. He sees the Lord on his throne, right, and he's surrounded by the host of heaven. Now, here's the crazy part. God decides the final outcome. A bad king is going to fall in battle. But then, a deliberation starts, a real conversation about how it's going to happen. This is not a one-man show. This is a council meeting in session.
This is a perfect example of something called layered causation. Let's break it down. Step 1, God wills the final outcome. Step 2, members of his heavenly council actually propose different ways to get it done. Step 3, a specific spirit gets the green light to act. And then, step 4, humans on the ground, the prophets, the king, they all make their own free choices that lead right to that decreed result. You've got all these different layers of real, meaningful agency all working together at the same time.
So if we start looking at it through this council lens, it means we have to completely redefine our terms. The old definitions, well, they're the reason we got into this mess in the first place.
Okay, first up, sovereignty. In this model, sovereignty isn't about God causing every little thing to happen. Think of it more like supreme jurisdiction, the ultimate right to rule and judge. It's kingship, right? A king governs through his delegates. He doesn't personally tell every single citizen what to do every second of the day.
And then there's freedom. So what's that? It's not this idea of absolute autonomy, where you can do whatever you want with no consequences. Nope. It's more like delegated authority. It's real power, real agency, given by God to both people and spiritual beings to make actual choices within their own sphere.
And you can really see the shift on this chart. The old way of thinking pitted total control against total autonomy. They were competitors in a zero-sum game. But in this new view, sovereignty as supreme jurisdiction and freedom as delegated authority, they're not fighting each other. They're actually essential parts of the same system of divine governance.
Okay, so the real test of any idea, right, is whether it actually works. Can it solve some of the old problems? And the answer is, this council framework, it has the power to untangle some of the thorniest theological knots out there.
All right, let's talk about foreknowledge. This is a big one. People always say, well, if God knows what's going to happen, then it has to happen, so free will can't be real. But that's mixing up knowing something with causing something. Let me put it this way. I might know my friend is going to pick coffee over tea, but that doesn't mean I reached into their brain and forced them to. Knowing isn't causing.
You see this so clearly in the story of Moses and the golden calf. I mean, God literally says he's going to destroy the Israelites. But then Moses steps in. He argues, he pleads, and the Bible says God relented. This isn't some pre-written play with a fixed ending. This is a real, dynamic interaction where a human's choices have a direct impact on what God does.
All right. But this brings us to the elephant in the room, doesn't it? The biggest question of all. If God isn't micromanaging everything, then where does evil come from?
The council model actually gives a really straightforward answer here. Evil doesn't come from God. It's not part of his plan. It's rebellion in the ranks. It's the result of delegated authority being misused. You see it with human disobedience in the garden, with corruption among the heavenly beings, and with the injustice from earthly rulers who were given a job to do and failed.
And the ultimate, most profound example of all of this has to be the crucifixion. The Bible is crystal clear. It happened according to the definite plan and foreknowledge of God. And yet, in the very same breath, it holds the people who did it completely responsible for their actions.
See, that's layered causation at its most intense. God's plan for salvation actually worked through the free, evil choices of people, without him ever causing that evil.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is some interesting theology, but what does it have to do with me? Well, this framework has huge practical implications for how we actually live our lives.
I mean, think about it. First, prayer is rescued from being pointless. If the story isn't already written, then our prayers, our intercession, actually do something. They matter. Second, our moral choices suddenly have real urgency. They're not just scenes in a movie that's already been filmed. And third, it actually makes God's wisdom look even more incredible. I mean, it takes way more genius to govern a universe of free agents than it does to run a computer simulation.
So in the end, this whole fight between sovereignty and freedom, it was based on a misunderstanding. They're not enemies locked in some cosmic battle. They're partners, harmonized partners, in this incredible divine system of governance.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. If we're not just puppets on a string, and our choices actually mean something inside of God's ultimate plan, then what's our role? What part are you, what part are we, supposed to be playing in this incredible story?